Hi everyone. How is everyone? Is everyone having a good Thursday? I know I am. Let's get started. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this update. I will try to go through as much as I can with you. At this point, I have limited information, but I have enough to tell you for what's going on. So, according to court records, Amber Portwood's attorney, along with prosecutors, were in court today to talk about the case. They were in a pretrial hearing. It was the second pretrial hearing that she's had since her arraignment back in July, shortly after her arrest. This is also the second meeting she's had with her where she was not present in the court. So today in court, it appears the attorneys met with the judge. Yesterday, prosecutors actually filed new evidence in the case. As a part of the discovery, they added 2 text messages along with explanations with the text messages. So those were added yesterday. That addition of the text messages, the addition of the text messages also follows evidence that they had added only a week ago or 2 weeks ago that included audio. I can actually tell you all of it. So they added audio and emails. They also, at the time of the investigation, had collected audio, video, and they had some other communications along with statements from the victim in this case, which was Andrew Glennon. So, what is moving forward? Well, there was some questions about Rhonda Russell, the person that put the money out for Amber when she was in jail after her arrest, who actually bonded her out. She requested that the court refund her the bond. And there isn't any notes on it. However, when I checked the records, the bond still stands. It has an effective date as of in July for when she was actually bonded out of county jail. And so it appears that the request that was made by Rhonda will not move forward at this time because the bond was not revoked. Nothing has changed in terms of the bond, and she is still in status there. Also, it says that on the 19th of September, they added emails, audio, and videos. So there's a lot of evidence in this case. Now, it's not to say that there isn't anything that the prosecutor adds to this case could be either against the defendant, or it could be exculpatory evidence, which actually would be evidence that helps to exonerate the defendant without an explanation of what kind of evidence it is, whether it is evidence to use against the person or whether it's exculpatory, is not listed. It's been the wider assumption by media that the evidence that's been collected and added by the prosecutors was in relation to their case against her. However, after speaking to my own attorney to get some clarification on this, he did say that prosecutors in this are required by law to add anything into a file, whether it is positive or negative that they think. And if it is exculpatory, meaning she could get off on it, it would have to be in there. So we can't assume that we have to assume that there's a small chance that some of this could exonerate her. However, the case is not being dismissed. So here's the thing. The prosecutors and attorneys after today's meeting, according to the court documents, will have to, the court has sent a message to the defendant, i.e. Amber, that if she wishes to resolve the case, she has to be in court on October 31st. So what does that mean? It could mean a couple different things. It could mean that she is willing to plead guilty, which we don't know. It could be that the prosecutors are willing to negotiate a plea deal for her in the case. However, we do know, according to what my own attorney told me, is that a defendant does not have to be in court in order to have the case dismissed. So if the court is requiring that she is there, it means that there's an expectation that they want to have a resolution to this case, i.e. through her own plea or through a plea deal. There's been a lot of talk about what kind of plea negotiations would look like for Amber, whether she would get house arrest, whether she would be put into rehab, whether she would actually be put into jail. It's really unknown at this point. She has 3 felonies that she's facing in this case, and they all carry a total of 2.5 years in prison. So she's charged with domestic battery, same as 6700, meaning that she is a repeat offender of domestic battery. She is also charged with criminal recklessness committed with a deadly weapon, which is what is in reference to the use of the machete, according to the criminal complaint that was filed by the prosecutors. And then the domestic battery committed in the presence of a child less than 16 years old. So in the state of Indiana, if a child is present, I'm sorry if you hear some stuff, we're just finishing up our stairs today, finally. Now, in the state of Indiana, it is a felony if you commit an act of domestic violence in front of a child. And because in the case of this, she admitted at the time of her arrest that she actually she admitted to the police officers when they got to the scene that she had struck Andrew with a shoe while he was holding their son. And then also, according to Andrew, that during the altercation, she charged at them while he was holding James, and that he had to hide behind a closet door in order to protect himself and James from her. So that is where we're at right now. It appears that the prosecutors are serious about moving forward. This case is likely not going to go away, and if they want to move forward, the expectation would be that she comes to court on October 31st, which is Halloween, and make a resolution. If a resolution isn't agreed upon at that time, I believe the next steps would be working towards actually going to a trial. So there's been a lot of back and forth on whether or not Amber would be willing to take a deal. And at this point, there hasn't been a plea deal offered. And so from what sources have told me, that there hasn't been any sort of negotiations yet at this point. That doesn't mean it wouldn't start now between today and the next trial on the next hearing on October 31st. But up until today, there hadn't been any negotiations from the sources that I had spoken to related to a plea deal. And according to the sources I spoke to, plea negotiations were really ranging, and they were sort of they were talking about at one point one thing and another thing. And until they actually sit down and sort of tease things out, there's no way to know. If this were to go to trial and she were convicted on all 3 counts, she could face up to 7.5 years. A likely option for a plea deal in this case could be a shorter prison sentence, confinement in a house via house arrest, required if the court decides that substances or substance abuse played a role in this. They could require that she undergo rehabilitation, and this is what she faced the last time. So when she was previously arrested for the altercation that happened with Gary Shirley, she was in part of the probation that she was on was that she had to have drug testing, and I believe she failed a drug test, but then she also picked up, while she was on probation, a drug charge. And so with the drug charge, that is ultimately what ended her up in the series of she could choose to stay in the drug program and abide by the rules. But what ultimately ended up happening is she had too many failed drug tests, and then she didn't show up, and she was put into prison. So it's unknown if at this time, if that were to be the case, whether or not she would actually take the help. I know at one point she was sober, but there's been a lot of speculation that in the months leading up to this, according to statements by Andrew on Instagram, that she was abusing not only opiates but marijuana. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. There has not been any sort of resolution yet in terms of the custody agreement. I know you guys have been asking. The court records for the custody case are not are mostly sealed, and so they don't even put in court dates. There have been rumors that the two of them have been in mediation trying to work through some of the issues and get to a custody agreement. However, it seems as though through stuff I'm hearing that maybe that won't happen. It's so hard to know because, again, everything is sealed, and so there's really not a lot of information to share there. So the custody stuff could potentially take a lot longer to get sorted out. And a lot of you would ask, have they made a ruling yet about his motion to move? And according to court records, they have not yet responded or provided any evidence, any information at this time related to the his request to move back to California. She did file the objection to the state on September 5th. So that's where we are today. It sounds like things could get really moving here if in the next couple weeks, and if a plea agreement is made or if she pleads guilty next on the 31st, we might be able to get some sort of resolution and wrap this case up. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then they'll be moving forward to trial. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that something can happen, that perhaps some level of responsibility will be taken if she feels like she needs to. But also, if you have questions, concerns, if you have any thoughts or feelings, please let me know in the comments. At this point, I am hopeful with the amount of evidence that resolution can come and be placed for the victims in this case. And I hope that the prosecutors and her defense attorneys can work through a solution. Going to trial is tedious. It puts so much stress not only on the defendant, but also on the victim. And prosecutors in this case and the defense attorneys typically like to resolve it without going to trial. All right, you guys, if I learn more, I'll be back. I'm hoping tonight to have Leslie Bass on and have us talk about some stuff in the tea world. And again, if you have anything that you want to talk about, make sure you give me some comments below and tell me if there's anything you're interested in hearing. All right, you guys, I'll be back later.